Hi, Jodie. It's nice to meet you, and thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Hi, Joseph. I'm doing very well. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. It's great to be here.
Jodie, thanks again for taking the time to be here. It's great to have you. Before we jump in, can you tell me a bit about yourself, how you discovered carnivore? How did it all start for you?
Great. Yeah, good question. So, my carnivore journey started out in April of 2022. I heard about, so this would be, a couple years after COVID and all of that. So 2 years later, in April of 2022, I had heard about um, some remedies for if you got sick or to keep you from getting sick. And on that Telegram podcast, they were discussing ivermectin. And I listened to it and I was super interested in that. Well, they were pairing taking ivermectin with the keto diet. They didn't call it keto, but that's essentially what it was. It was cut out all processed foods, meat, vegetables, and fruit. All sugar, get rid of all of that. So I started. I was very intentional about it. The recommended drink was lemon water. And so I started 2 weeks before I started the keto diet. I started on the lemon water, just what I had been eating, adding the lemon water. So I was slowly getting my body prepped. And then on my 50th birthday in May of 2022, I started keto. And my dad also joined me at the time. And I'm 4'11". And at that time when I started, I weighed 159 pounds. So I lost like 25 pounds doing keto. All of my joint, it's funny, right about 4 months before I turned 50, I started to get joint pain, my knees and my hips. And I remember thinking, what is this? Like, where did this come from? Anyways, all of that went away within weeks of being on keto. I also had better mental clarity. I just felt really good overall. And my dad, he also lost weight and has since, that was 4 years ago, but he's continued. He's not the best, I would say keto, but he's lost weight and, still maintains that. But that's how I heard about it. And then I'd been on keto for about a year and a half. And in January of 2024, I heard Jordan Peterson speak about the carnivore diet on Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't know when he did that podcast, but I came upon it in January of 2024. And I searched out his daughter's story, Michaela Peterson's. But as I listened to both of them, I didn't really think I needed that. It sounded kind of drastic. And I was thrilled that they had the results they had. I thought they were amazing. But I didn't think it was for me. Well, 6 months later, it was July 2024. I kind of had fallen off of the keto wagon, so to speak, just having too many keto treats. So I decided I need a reset. I needed to just dial it back in and get rid of, some of the, I felt bloated, inflamed, and I had gained weight. I mean, that's how I knew that I was having too many keto treats. So in July of 2024, I decided I'm going to do a 30-day carnivore reset. So I prepped some food that week. And how I got started was I already had these burger patties prepped that day. And I remember waking up the first day of the week and going, oh, well, why don't I just start today and I'll have these burger patties for breakfast and lunch. And that's what I did. It was easy, delicious, and duplicatable. I easily lost the weight again and dropped 10 pounds really quickly. I had also started to get into that space of carnivore. And so I got familiar with, Kelly Hogan. I joined one of her groups in November 2024 because I wanted some support. Well, let me jump back. In November, July to November, I was only going to do 30 days, right? I felt so amazing and so good on carnivore. I just kept going. I didn't even think, I think I hit 90 days. And I mean, I bypassed 30 easily without even thinking that I was going to stop at that time. It just was so, my body just loved it. So November comes and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to be hitting the holidays. Let me get some support. So I joined one of Kelly Hogan's November groups in 2024 and easily got through the first Thanksgiving. I wasn't perfect after that, but carnivore is just my foundation. And I mostly ate eggs, bacon, burgers, butter, and occasionally steak. One of the difficulties that I had transitioning over was I had bouts of constipation that were very painful. And I never had problems with constipation before. But I would say, in the past, since I started carnivore, probably 2 good bouts, well, maybe 2.5, anyways, of the constipation. And it was excruciating. And the first time it hit, I didn't know what to do to help myself. And I remember not eating at all during the day because I didn't want to, feel my stomach muscles just, constricting in pain. And it was just so painful. But at the end of the week, I found a YouTube video from a physical therapist that showed how to ease constipation by doing an abdominal self-massage. She recommended also using a squatty potty. And those 2 things saved me. The abdominal massage worked amazingly quick. She has like a little instructional video and she does it with you. So I followed along. And within 10 minutes of me finishing that, and it takes maybe 10 minutes to do the whole massage, all of my pain went away. That excruciating, like 12 out of 10 pain was gone. And I still do that abdominal massage regularly, at least weekly. Sometimes I do it every day. And I still have my squatty potty, great tools. So about a year later, I got food poisoning and was sick for about 4 days. I couldn't eat, but I stayed hydrated. And I decided to just continue water fasting for another 6 days and then break my fast. After that 10 days, I ended up losing 10 pounds the following week. Actually, on that fast, I gained weight, a couple of pounds here and there over that 10 days. But as soon as I started eating on the carnivore diet again, I mean, literally back to back, about 3 back-to-back days, I lost like 3 pounds and then 4 pounds and then 3 pounds. It just came right off. And so I hit my goal weight of 117 at that time. And then a month later, I tried something that I thought wasn't for me at all. I tried the high-fat carnivore diet. I began eating 80 to 90% animal fat in the form of heavy cream that I would whip up into Cool Whip. I'd been making my own Cool Whip with heavy cream for years and was delicious. And I remember thinking, oh, I just won't add the sugar. And I would add a little bit of, I'd add vanilla and a splash of lemon juice and whip it up. Oh, delicious. So I would whip up every morning 8 ounces of this Cool Whip, and then I'd separate it into 2 containers, so 4 ounces each. And I would have that one for breakfast and one for lunch. And then shortly after, I had gotten some flavored peptides, collagen peptides, and I would do this like carnivore cheesecake where it was just cream cheese and butter whipped. And then I would put a scoop of the collagen peptides in, and I would eat like a tablespoon of that with my Cool Whip just to, I don't know, give me something different. Anyways, I felt the best I had felt ever eating that breakfast and lunch every day. And then I would do my third meal in the evening when I got home from work, and I would eat protein. Somehow when I get home, it just felt like, oh, I want to make sure I'm eating some protein. That's just what it felt like for me. So once I hit my goal weight in April of 2025, I figured that my body would continue healing. I was sure that there was plenty left for me to heal. And I didn't focus much on my weight. And I knew that I'd probably gain some back on this, high fat carnivore. I didn't know if I would, but I mentally prepared. It was fine. So for 7 months, I ate high fat carnivore. And I noticed in that time period that when I ate the Cool Whip, I could feel things move and shift in my brain. I would feel like almost these electric currents. It wasn't constantly going on, but it was something I noticed. And I intuitively felt that my brain was healing itself with all of this fat. So in January 2026, I felt it was time to step away from the high fat carnivore. I also felt like my body felt very satisfied, very like I had enough. So I went back to the 60-70% animal fat and just kind of listened to my body and what I felt it needed. That 7 months I was on high fat, I did gain 19 pounds, and I was totally fine with that. I just measured. I just kept track of it every day. I would measure myself. So anyway, so in January 2026, I just thought, okay, I'm ready for a change again. And so I did that. I went back to just 30 to 40% protein and 60 to 70% animal fat. And that brings me up to April of 2026. And I became intrigued by sardines. I tried them once in 2024. Somebody had said, they're like a superfood. And I thought, oh, I want to try those. And they said they kind of, if you're put off by them, mix them with tuna, like a portion of tuna and a portion of sardines, like 1 can of each. Mix it up and you won't even know. So that's what I did. It just didn't feel like what I was drawn to eating in 2024. But in April of 2026, I bought a couple cans of sardines, and lo and behold, they're delicious. And my body responded almost in a similar fashion to the heavy cream Cool Whip that I was making. I just felt really nourished. I felt really healthy, rejuvenated, satiated. And so currently, since April 2026, I have been eating, definitely I eat them every week, but sometimes I eat anywhere from 1 to 3 cans most days. I don't really do sardine fasts. I just really like sardines now. And I think my body just really needed the omega-3s and the other nutrients that are in the sardines. And I've also added salmon and shrimp, and my body seems to do very well with those as well. So at the end of April 2026, I also got interested in dry fasting. I've done plenty of water fasts, and my body does really well with them. And a year ago, this other podcast I was listening to recommended doing a 24-hour dry fast, which is no food, no water. And I remember trying, and they said, if you can't do it, that's fine. Just do it as long as you can. And I thought, okay, I didn't do it for the full 24 hours. I liked the idea of it, but I just felt like, I don't think I can do this. So a year later, in the end of April, I decided I'm going to try my first, because I started to research. I started to watch a bunch of videos on it. And of course, once you watch one or two, then they start sending you more and more. And I felt like I had enough information on how it works, what it was doing, and the benefits, and then how to come off. And again, I was familiar with water fast, so this was just another step of fasting, doing a dry fast. And it's kind of interesting. There's a soft dry fast and a hard dry fast. Again, if anyone's interested, they can research that. You definitely don't want to dry fast without doing your research, because you just, again, your body's doing stuff and you just want to know what's going on. Anyways, after my first 24-hour fast in April, I was really pleased with the results. I felt more rested, and I also had this new sense of motivation that I don't think I've ever felt. I remember I suddenly had the motivation to start a project that I had thought about, that I felt like God had given me, but just couldn't get motivated to do it. And all of a sudden, after this dry fast, I'm like, it was just easy to do. And suddenly, and since then, I've been able to just write up these to-do lists and execute them, and really doing more than I could imagine.
Jodie, you have a very interesting journey from keto to carnivore, and I like that you started with keto, and because that kind of like eases you into carnivore and make it, my assumption is that it's a lot easier, switching it from that point. And you did keto for like a year or something, I believe, and even when you moved into carnivore, you also did a lot of experimentation, like try from going to from 80 to 90% animal fat, and then moving on to like 60 to 70%, and then adding in moving into like a sardines, adding in salmon and shrimp, dry fasting. I think you did a lot of experiment. I think it's quite awesome. Yeah.
It's been
Um,
fun. Yeah.
yeah. So Jody, how long did you do your research for, like before jumping into carnivore? So you did the switch, right? Like, and you mentioned Joe Rogan and Michaela Peterson. Did it took you like weeks or like just days, or did it made sense for you to like try it now because logically, yeah, this is easy also.
It took me 6 months. I'm the type of person that I kind of need the seed planted first. And when that happens, I'll often say no at the beginning. And as the seed just sits there, it kind of grows. Sometimes, this time for carnivore, it took me 6 months before I was like, yeah, I got to do this. Some things take a year to, kind of sit with me until I'm ready to pull the trigger, so to speak.
I see. Yeah, I feel like it's similar to me. It took me like 5 months, 4 to 5 months to before jumping in. I did looked up many videos, Dr. Chafee, Steak and Butter Gal, and then Dave Mack's videos of different stories. I think I also heard about the oxalate dumping. So I think that's one of my worries, that maybe I'll die first before I get the benefit. So um did it was there anything like worries you, like before jumping into carnivore, or maybe something similar?
Um, No, I think a lot of times, honestly, I usually listen to all of the positive stories, and that's what motivates me to get started. I'm like, I may not have the same outcome as other people, but I'm always excited to find out what my body, wants to do on this diet or using this food or, whatever it might be.
I see. I think that's very good. Um, was there like a reason why you jumped into keto? I know it became carnivore like after over a year. Like, was there like a specific health issue? I think you mentioned about losing weight. Um, yeah, was it like more than just losing weight, or was that like the reason you jumped into keto?
Um, so yeah, not really. It was just, uh, I weighed the heaviest that I had weighed. I was starting to get joint pain. And then the whole thing with COVID and all the fear around that, I never bought into it. I even quit my job because somebody, sort of a boss of sorts, was going to require me to take the COVID shot before returning to work, and I refused and quit. So it's always, health and wellness has always been on the forefront. It's something I as a kid, I was always very active. I played sports in school, even did college volleyball my freshman year, and just was mindful about my eating. I felt like my mom was a really good cook, and she always cooked home, really good home cooked meals for us. And we always had a protein. She always made sure. I did not like fruit. I did not like vegetables. Well, corn, green beans, that was maybe mashed potatoes. But I was always a picky eater. I didn't really eat a lot. In high school, I was kind of like an undereater or an absent-minded eater. I would just forget to eat. And suddenly I'd get hangry. And one of my sisters she had picked up on this as we got older. And I remember her saying one time, before hangry was ever even a thought or a term, she'd be like, get her something to eat. She needs to eat something. And that would always work. Like, my body just was crying out for some nourishment that I just would forget to give it. So in high school, my nickname, one of the bus driver, he gave me the nickname Slim, because I was just this stick figure practically. But I also had some mental health issues that came up in my late 20s. Well, basically, as I was in my 30-year-old age, when I was turning 30, going into 31. And I have a history on my mom's side of depression and on my dad's side of anxiety. And those just kind of reared up and came alive in me when I turned 30. And I had insomnia, and just my whole body was breaking down. And this actually, I feel like, was a God thing, because I was on one trajectory, one path, and I feel like God was having my body. I felt like I was the type that was so stubborn that nothing was going to nudge me, but off of that path, but losing everything. So I lost my health, I lost my job, income, everything. I had some breaks with certain family members. And it was like, instead of me trying to figure it out, I finally got to the point where, I got help from going to the hospital, and I was in a psych unit for a week, and that was very helpful. It got me some different medications. I'm not really a big medication person, but if you need them, you need them. So I took them, and they helped me, and I stayed on them for 2.5 years. About at the 2-year mark, I felt like I was ready to see if I can go without. And because some of them I didn't even know were really working. And the one for the help with my insomnia was the last thing that I let go of. And I was able to do that. If I wasn't, fine. But I was okay with however it went. But I was able to get off all medication by the time I was 33, I guess. Anyways. So, or I guess it was 34. But so I got that help. The other thing I did is I just turned to God. And I said, God, I can't do this. I can't go back to my job. I've got this depression, anxiety, and so on, all this stuff I'm dealing with. What am I going to do? And what I meant by that was, and I didn't ask that question until I knew that I would accept any answer that he gave me. Before then, there were things that I wasn't willing to do. I do different things, but I had like a list. I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't go. I decided I'd never go back to school. I wasn't going to get a master's degree, nothing. And so I'm out for this walk, and I'm like, God. And it's like the first time I felt like I'd really turned to God in my life. I mean, I always had faith, but I always kind of figured things out for myself. And it was the first time I didn't know what to do. And I said, God, what do I do? And as I paused expectantly, I heard, get a master's degree. And I didn't hesitate. That was the thing I didn't want to do, but I didn't hesitate. And I'm like, okay, what should I get a master's degree in? Because I already had a degree in social work. I'm like, do I do social work again? Do I just do it in a different area? And all God said was, maybe you could teach. And I didn't ask any more questions. And that was the end of that conversation. Well, a couple hours later, I was driving to an appointment with my psychiatrist, and I saw this Christian bookstore on the side of the road that I hadn't really noticed was there before. And so I thought, and I'm the type, I loved books at that time. I read ferociously, and that would have been a treat. I'm like, I'll stop by the bookstore after my appointment and I'll buy a book. So I go into this bookstore, and in the interior, you couldn't miss it. Right when you opened the door, there was this bulletin board, and it said, earn a free master's degree by teaching English in China. And I remember stopping, staring at that sign, going, oh my God, we were just talking about that. Master's degree in teaching. I mean, God had just told me you could do that. And so there was a little information thing. I tore it off. I think I went into the bookstore, but I was so like amazed by this, communication that, God was directing me, that I didn't even pay attention to the books. I didn't leave with the book. I just went home. And it didn't happen right away. But a couple months later, I started looking up, or I take that back. I think I looked up, how to do this program. And it was through like a Christian organization that I wasn't associated with. So they were promoting that, I think it was like a Methodist church or something. I wasn't sure, but I was born and raised Catholic. So it just didn't seem like it would work out. So I set that aside. I kept healing and whatnot. And during this whole time, I was at work. I couldn't work. I tried to go back to work, and within a day or so, I was just working like 4 hours. My anxiety just was horrible that I just couldn't do it, even on medication. So again, that's why I turned to God, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. So it took me a couple months after researching about the China thing and knowing that's not going to work, that I looked into, well, what is this teaching English in China or that? And I found all the countries hired English teachers, and you didn't have to do anything. You didn't actually have to go to school to be one. If you were born and raised in one of the 6 English-speaking countries, you could get, and you had a college degree, which I already had. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I could actually go work. I felt like God was showing me the path. Just tiny breadcrumbs. You know, it was like, what was I going to do with it? And I decided to follow that. And I found a place over in Europe. I found like a 30-day school that would give me an ESL certificate. I didn't need it. I found that out later. But part of their promise was they would help you find a job at the end of the 30 days. And I was interested in that. So I went overseas for 5 years and taught ESL. I, spent 5 months in the Czech Republic. Then I moved to Korea, and I spent 4.5 years there. And during that time, I really kind of taught myself how to cook and eat keto, but I didn't even know that was keto. I mean, all the options, it was really mostly in Korea, because I was there the longest, 4.5 years. But the grocery stores, everything is set up to promote good eating and good health. So I learned a lot living there, and I felt like I did a lot of healing mentally, physically, emotionally, being overseas. But that was part of what keto has done for me, and Carnivore is help with my mental health and clarity.
Wow. I mean, your journey is actually even more interesting, and it goes far beyond like traveling to other countries to teach English. I think that's another awesome thing. And I think I relate a lot to what you said about the COVID times. I think 2022 is when you started pretty much the keto, right? But then you're sort of already familiar with keto because being in Korea, the way they eat is kind of like keto. So yeah, I mean during the COVID times, I feel like I was also depressed. I feel like I lost a lot of respect for many people. Some breaks here and there, a lot of forcing the jabs, putting the mask on. It was just really depressing. But I'm glad that's over. So and then sometimes I wish I could have found Carnivore a lot early on. Maybe my state of mind would have been a lot different, right? So
Right.
yeah, those are really hard times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jodie, so what was your favorite food then? Before Carnivore. I know you mentioned when you were younger, I think back in high school or maybe even younger, you used to be like you're known like the stick figure or like under eater, picky eater. Did you had anything specific?
I just remember my mom being a good cook, and again, there was always meat. And she did like sweets, so she would bake for us and whatnot. But I feel like the best thing about my childhood is there was not a lot of processed. There was some, because there were cake mixes or, little biscuit mixes or whatever. But for the most part, I think I've always been a protein eater. I would rather have protein than anything else as a kid, and mostly beef. In fact, nowadays I have a brother-in-law who he's a farmer, and they have cattle. And when they butcher, anyways, I am able to buy meat from them, which is amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you mentioned about this, the mental illness. So you mentioned insomnia, anxiety, what else? Yeah, those two. So when you switched to carnivore, um, I think you were already having success with keto, right? So did you experience those things like gradually getting better, or was it like instantaneous?
I am so glad you asked this because when I went
Mhm.
to do that 30-day reset of the carnivore diet, this is the primary reason I kept going. My mental health was the best it had ever been. I felt so much calm and peace. Some people will maybe say, oh, the food noise went away. I don't even, again, because maybe I'm an undereater and I never really thought about food anyways, like that really was never a focus. But I remember just feeling so, this sense of peace. You know how they say in the Bible, a peace beyond all understanding? Like I felt like I had a glimmer of what that might feel like. Just a constant, and I guess the sense of it was the anxiety was just gone. And I don't know that I'd ever had an absence of anxiety or depression. But all of a sudden, things that used to irritate me at work or at home or wherever, I was suddenly unperturbed. All the things, I could have a list of things that would irritate me or people, and all of a sudden I wasn't bothered by any of it. I just was happy and I just breezed through my day. All my mental fog really went away when I started the high fat carnivore. But when I first started just regular carnivore, like, oh, and I'm really glad that I had that time from regular carnivore to high fat carnivore, because it allowed me to, have some data of the difference, for months, with each one. It just, so it was like that level of peace and calm. And then that just like got refined even more on the high fat carnivore.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that, you did all this experiment, like you said about the, having all this data and then finding out what really works for you. So I guess looking back at that journey of like doing experimentation, adjustments, um, were there any mistakes you've had? Like what and how did you learn from them? Maybe you can walk me through that.
Yeah, I would say that I do not claim to be 100% perfect carnivore. I have tried to add things in. And what I notice, and I appreciate those experiments as well, because it really truly shows me things that cause inflammation or don't, things that cause weight gain or don't. And anytime I have weight gain, I just feel like it's more like water retention. And so even there have even been some electrolytes that I've taken that at first I thought they were good, but then it just wasn't the right balance of electrolytes. So I had to kind of stop that. And nothing wrong with them. I just found that I can buy bulk, like magnesium, bulk potassium, and, salt, sodium, and kind of make my own mixture. And also, I feel like that's really important when I do these fasts. Of anytime, whether it's water fasting or dry fasting, that I can increase or decrease according to what my body needs, the electrolytes that I take in. But I don't know. It's, we have this amazing, machinery in a physical body, and that, we all have kind of the same stuff, but we all have different childhoods, what we ate, how we were raised, the environment that we were raised in. Was there pollution? What kind of home did we, were we raised in? Some people grew up in moldy environments. Some people didn't, So I feel like that also impacts. So then we're all different. And you can't say what worked for me is going to work for you. Everybody's got to try and find what works for them. I think everybody would benefit on carnivore, but only they can choose to do it, and for their own reasons,
Yeah, I really agree with that. Jody, so I guess looking back at my own journey, I had many assumptions, because I had my own health issues too, right? I had psoriasis. I'm thinking it's probably caused by genetics, or maybe I'm just stressed, or maybe I'm just dirty, and I need to take a shower, or maybe I'm going to overdo the shower and then my skin will start to dry out. So, did you had any assumption what was causing your mental health issues, let's say, or maybe the weight gain? Like, did you think it might be a specific food trigger, or maybe the environment stress? I think because you talked about the work stress related, right? So, but now,
Yeah.
like looking back at this now, like I'm thinking, okay, this is all related to me, like, my eating, my lifestyle. So, I'm not having enough nutrients. That's why my skin was doing this. What about you? Did you have many assumptions?
What's interesting? I honestly didn't think anything was wrong with my diet until COVID happened. And again, I tuned into this podcast about ivermectin, and I actually take ivermectin. I still have. I still use it every day. But it was learning about that, and the connection of why taking it had to do with parasites, and that why processed food and sugar is bad is because it feeds the parasite. You're basically feeding that. They're eating all your nutrients, which is, and depending, again, I don't have the studies or research to know the validity of this, but when I heard it, it sounded like, yeah, that sounds right. And so it said, like, wherever you have problems, like, let's say my brain, my anxiety and depression, that's where my parasites are. That's, and you can genetically pass your parasites on, because, you're birthed from your, mother, and anyways, the DNA, the parasites attach as, you're being birthed. Just in the womb growing, you're collecting from what your mother has, and then anything that came in from the DNA from your father. Anyways, I felt like I really learned a lot about parasites. And again, I don't know. I didn't really go digging into the research to go, aha. I just felt like sometimes, and maybe it's a level of truth. Maybe there's another level of truth that I haven't come upon, which is fine. But it made a lot of sense to me that they were saying that really what cancer is just parasites. And that kind of makes sense to me, because we've always had ways to heal from cancer. It's just not pushed by the medical, you can find them and people have survived for sure. And many of them came from different reasons. Some of them they just didn't worry about it. They didn't have any stress. Others, changed their eating and, so on and so forth. So maybe there's no problem until you see that there's a problem. And I was seeing a problem within my own self as I was hearing about parasites and how to use ivermectin, but also your diet. You don't want to kill them with the ivermectin, but then feed them with the food that you're eating. So that's why you have to, do it all together. And I was starting to really need it because I was starting to get the aging, well, you're just aging, the inflammation I was having achy joints that I'd never had before. And I'm like, I don't want this. And it's just amazing how quickly though, when you go on keto to, or carnivore, how amazing you feel. And then people talk about the keto flu. When I was learning about the parasites and ivermectin, they would talk about, there's an actual term that was named after this doctor that discovered it, the Herxheimer. It's called the Herxheimer effect. And that's when parasites die, they give off a toxin. And again, your body in the fat cells stores toxins, right? When you guzzle down a Coke or something and your body's trying to get rid of it, it'll push some into the fat or in your, use it up or whatever. And then it'll try and get rid of it, other ways. And, so when you start losing fat, sometimes you can get the keto flu or feel sick, but it's really just the Herxheimer effect, which is a whole list of things, which could be dizziness, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, on and on it goes. But it's really just your body purging itself of all the toxins and whatnot. So honestly, I feel like it's a blessing to go through this journey and have tried it for myself. I love to learn. I love personal growth, spiritual growth. And the more I clean up my body, the better my, spiritual relationship gets with God. The better I feel. My other relationships get better. Anyways, it's amazing. I think it's a blessing. Not everybody has things that lead them down this path, but I appreciate, the anxiety and depression that I had to go through, to get to where I am, and the joint pain and whatnot. So.
Yeah, Jodie, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I feel like yeah, we all had to like go through something, to pretty much arrive in this exact moment, know, because we all have like a degree of desperation, to fix health issues or maybe specific ones, and then I'm guessing like I'm assuming that if we don't have that some kind of desperation, I don't think the motivation would be there to try it, or that wanting to learn more. And I think you really said that well, like wanting to learn, and then learning about the ivermectin, the parasites. Yeah. Jody, so what keeps you motivated now? Like, was your motivation like a lot different, like before carnivore and compared to now? Like, I like that you mentioned God and your faith. How like you travel to different country about the teaching. I think that's also one thing that I really credit to. I'm also a Catholic, but I'm not really like close to my faith fate in the past, but after carnivore, I'm just like thanking God every day, like for letting me find carnivore. And, I'm full of life now. This is why I named the channel Hungry Mind, because I feel like I'm always wanting to learn more about other people's stories, some things to learn, daily life. But what about for you? What is your motivation now?
Um, the same as when I started on carnivore, the excitement of how good can I feel, and and knowledge that I'm sure I still have healing left to do, So I'm excited to see. And it's almost hard to imagine that this month is my 2-year carnivore anniversary, so to speak. 2 years. I mean, if it went by like that. I mean, I'm excited when I'll have been 5 years or 15 years, So I there's just a lot of joy in me looking to just enjoy today, and excited about, the next day. So my motivation, I guess, is just learning and growing and just having, an incredible life. I've loved all of the highs and lows. I mean, I wouldn't have any of the highs if I hadn't had any of the lows. And so I appreciate all of it. And maybe not always in the moment that I'm going through the low do I appreciate it, but I always just appreciate all experience. And so my motivation is just to appreciate the day, no matter what it is, what shows up, and just that's my motivation.
Yeah, that's very well said. I feel the same. I like to share my story, so maybe someone, even if it helps one person, I feel like, it's good enough for me. Yeah. Um, so what does a typical day of eating look like for you now? Do you keep it the same, or do you switch things up from time to time? Because I know you added shrimp, salmon in the past. I think now you said you still do sardines like weekly. Yeah, maybe you can walk me through.
Yeah. So I'll get up in the morning and I do my prayer time, and I'll usually eat right after that. And in the mornings, I'll have either salmon or a hamburger patty and maybe some shrimp, a side of shrimp, or some beef brisket and a side of shrimp. And then I like to do like about a 20 to 30-minute walk. And just so then whenever I get hungry again, I will eat. I've kind of gotten into Equip protein powder shakes. It's been so hot. They're just so refreshing. And I just like to mix them with some heavy cream, water, ice, and a scoop of the protein powder. And it's just a quick, 20 grams of protein. Sometimes, anyways, I've just gotten really obsessed with them. They're just so easy to grab on the go, or just to get some protein in. Sometimes I'll have that in the morning before my walk. And then I have also experimented with eating earlier in the day so that I would finish eating by like 4 o'clock. And I've noticed that I feel pretty good when I do that. But I've noticed too that sometimes keeping my body guessing. I might eat, late in the evening or whatnot. I just kind of listen to my body. And if my body feels like I need some protein, honestly, what feels best when I feel that is a can of sardines. That just is amazing. But that's usually like the days that I work, on my lunch break at work, I'll have a can of sardines. And I also, I've kind of, again, I do kind of experiment. I'm more kind of ketovore lately as I experiment, and I tried the Quest protein chips with my sardines, and I like that. Today I made some sardine and tuna salad, so to speak, with some homemade mayo and eggs. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see, what else? I kind of eat the same things. I actually haven't eaten much beef lately. I used to, that's all I ate was beef. Hamburger patties, bacon, well, bacon's not beef, but bacon and steaks. And lately, I've just been so obsessed with the seafood, with sardines, salmon, and shrimp. Those are just on rotate. And then I've added those protein shakes. But that's kind of what I eat. And I'm really super satisfied with that. Again, sometimes I'll eat like in a 6-hour window. Sometimes it'll be more like 3 or 4 meals. Again, sometimes just more like 2 meals. And then sometimes 3 meals. I just like to take it day by day. But I do still drink lemon water. I've always done that. And then I take iodine drops, 1 drop in the morning and then 2 drops at night before bed. And I also have electrolyte powders. Again, I have my own magnesium malate is the form I take with potassium chloride. And I have a recipe and I'll add that to my lemon water. Delicious. And I'll take extra in the morning and extra at night and then kind of sip on it throughout the day. But that's, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, yeah, you have a lot of things going on here. And yeah, so, I mean, like you said, you take it day by day. And, sometimes you eat twice, sometimes you eat 3 times. And right now, you like seafood like tuna, sardines, salmon, shrimp. Really good list. Jodie, is there anything hard about being carnivore for you? Some examples of this for me would be like social gatherings, with family and friends who are non-carnivores. The travel, scouting the location if there's any, maybe carnivore friendly location or something. And then another one would be cravings. It took me like over a year to get it out of my system. What about for you? Is there anything hard or maybe difficult?
I would say I have more mental cravings. Like, I don't really have the bodily ones, that it's more like stress related. I can have, that's been a struggle, I guess, that I've had to deal with. And again, I think when I have plenty of fat in my body, that's when I just do the best. But as far as family goes, my family's been great. In fact, I was almost kind of surprised that I would get, if I went to eat, at a family's gathering, we've just always had plenty of protein, so I just ate protein. Nobody thought it was weird that I didn't eat, or I was very open that, hey, I'm doing carnivore, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. It feels great. I don't try and make them feel bad if they don't. And anyways, it's fine. But they also they want to make sure that they've got something that's, for me to eat. And I'm like, oh, if you've got this, and I'll bring deviled eggs or, whatever, bacon, and it'll be fine. The other thing is, I just don't eat out. I feel like I make better food at home, and it's cheaper I don't know. I just hardly, and when I do eat out, in fact, when I started Keto, I was working at a fast food. It was, a family-owned fast food, not a chain. Anyways, I would just eat burger patties, and I still, if I want to, I'll go through their drive-thru and get some burger patties. So and this may go back to me being the undereater, not thinking about it. I just don't care, that much. And I'm used to, so even if I had to like fast, just not eat anything, I don't really look at somebody eating something and think, oh, I wish I could do that. It just, the more I've felt the struggle with food is when I've been stressed. And it's been a hard day, and I felt like, oh, I deserve, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I do know it does help, when I feel that way, to avoid, seeing it, like, I don't, avoid the aisles down in the grocery store that have things that I might have eaten in the past. It's just something I consciously do to just make it easier for me. I just try and stick to going into the grocery store, get exactly what I need, get my cream, heavy cream, get my seafood, and out, which is really nice. Or cream cheese or butter or whatever, eggs.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I'm really glad to hear, your family's pretty easygoing when it comes to this whole lifestyle, that, they don't, nobody gives you a hard time, and they're very understanding, pretty much. Yeah, I like to hear that. And also, same, like, I like the whole experience doing grocery, just like in and out, like, get whatever you need, and then that's it. You just like leave, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jody, if you had to describe the impact of carnivore in your life, what one word would you describe it? And tell me why.
The first word that popped to mind was awesome. And then the second word was calm. Having dealt with anxiety and depression my whole life, calm, or you could use the word peace, just being calm is, I keep thinking back to that first month that I did carnivore and how calm I felt. And that was worth it to me. Even if I didn't, have the other experimentations with the high fat carnivore, just having the basic calmness was just amazing. Amazing. So healing my mental health has been worth everything.
Yeah, that is really awesome. Yeah. I like your first word, and and you combine them, awesome and calm. Yeah. Jody, so knowing what you know now about the nutrition and the lifestyle, and every other thing, that comes with it, right? If you can give an advice to someone who may had a similar issue, like some mental health issues, like anxiety, um, or maybe they having a hard time sleeping. They have insomnia, but they're very skeptical about this whole thing. They think they're gonna get a heart attack. They have no idea, right? But they're
Mhm.
interested. What would you
Right.
tell them now?
I would tell them to go slow. If you have that much fear or hesitation, because some people are just, let's just go. I would say take it one meal at a time. And in your day, if you can do one meal that's all carnivore, and then eat however you eat. And then when you're ready, do 2 meals that are carnivore, and then eat however you want to eat. Just start there. I started with lemon water, and that was helpful for me. It was almost like a mental, hoop to jump through. Can I do this? Oh, okay, I can do lemon water. Oh yeah, this tastes good. Oh, okay. It's I think I did well with, baby steps, and I would just say, here are some small things you could change, and then let them pick. I would give them some options. That's what I would do. I would say, here's some ways that you could do it, and something's going to resonate or not. And I honestly never worry about anybody, because God's got us. God had me. God knew exactly how to get me to where I am. And he's going to do the same with all of them. And I recognize that their life may fall apart before they're ready to do something different. And that's okay. How long that takes, or maybe if it never, that's okay too. Maybe, I'm not going to second guess God. They have their own path, with God, and I'm happy to support or answer any questions anybody has. And I honestly feel like people are watching. They're watching you. They're watching how you feel, how you do, and it might not be right now. It might be in 10 years, or 8, or 2 months from now or something. But and the only time I've ever recommended carnivore to somebody, I asked their permission first. I said, hey, I'd like to, send this video to you. It's about, blah, blah, blah. Are you interested? Would that be okay? And then whether they watch it or not is up to them. And I feel like anything like that, or even people just watching me, is just the seed planting. They're aware of it. It's in their awareness. And that's the first step. Just becoming aware of some other possibility is huge. So I would, if they asked me, I would give them, some simple steps to move forward, and let them have their own data, have their own discovery.
Yeah, I really like that. I think, I like what you describe it as seed planting. It's not my first time hearing carnivore also. I've heard it like 10 years ago or so,
Mm.
maybe 11 now. And then, I didn't think much of it. But again, seed planting, and you go back to it and then kind of relearn the whole thing. And then, okay, so let's give it a try, So after 10 years, right?
Right?
Yeah. hmm
That's amazing. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Jody, so you've done carnivore, ketovore, for combined like maybe I'm guessing like 5 years now, keto
It's
and
been
carnivore,
right
right?
at about a little over 4 years now.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry, didn't mean to
What would
interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. So, what advice would you give to uh people who had been carnivore for over a year. Let's say they've experienced all the benefits, but suddenly after 1 year, they're experiencing like some negative, and they don't know what it is. It could be keto flu, it could be oxalate dumping, or maybe they're lacking in electrolytes or something else. And they're thinking of giving it all away and just like approaching another diet, right? So you've done like, numerous like experiment on yourself, like adjustments, tweaking, like what would you tell them?
I don't think I'd tell them anything. I honestly, I would tell them, I'm so excited for you to discover, because maybe they need the data. Maybe it wasn't strong enough, before, of seeing how bad it feels to, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like we're all pretty smart. We've gotten this far in life for a reason. And they don't need my permission to try anything they want. I'm more of a, I'm excited for you to find out how that, feels for you. And they'll find out. And if they choose that they want that, there's a deeper, I feel like, with growth, it happens in layers, and maybe they've had enough growth now, and now it's time to kind of like step over here, or maybe that's part of their leveling up. And I wouldn't want to presume or assume that their path is wrong. I look at it from this way. I don't want anyone telling me what to eat, what to do. I didn't want anybody to tell me to take the jab. So I like to make suggestions and let people pick and choose and follow, because I'm busy enough with, taking care of myself. I trust that they're headed in the right direction, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like I like giving suggestions, so it doesn't like forces or like, hey, do this, or do that. I feel like that's my limit to what I can say to people, so they don't feel obligated to just like take any kind of advice from someone. I like that. Um, Jody, my last question for you is your future outlook. How do you see carnivore maybe in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see carnivore being in the good light, meaning we'll see more people talk about it? You'll probably hear more podcasts, um, maybe a lot more people, and maybe the medical industry is going to push more onto this side of lifestyle because it's curing a lot of diseases, um, or maybe just like improving health issues. At the same time, the negative side would be maybe the meat prices are going to go high. We'll probably get some pushback from the media, even more stronger, or maybe a similar censorship during the COVID. What are your thoughts on this?
I feel like there's a lot of knowledge being put out there that's probably always been there for decades about the processed foods, fast food and that. And it really comes down to self-education. you have to be willing to look at that and willing to look at eating A causes B. And take responsibility, self-responsibility. That's what it boils down to. And then I think once you start, it's kind of hard to stop. I know people do the yo-yo, but I think that's one of the great things about carnivore, ketovore, carnivore, is that, I don't know, you can't go wrong with protein. And I think I've seen a lot of things about more people focusing on protein and understanding they need protein. There's no essential carbohydrates, right? But there are essential proteins, essential amino acids, electrolytes, whatnot, fats. But I feel like people move into the high protein, and maybe it's not necessarily carnivore, but it's getting there. You know what I mean? So I don't know, maybe now, and there's people that maybe waffle back and forth. Like I had a cousin, the last time I saw him was 2 years ago, and he had slimmed down tremendously, like lost over 100 pounds, if not more. And I just saw him 2 weeks ago, and it looked like he had gained most of it back. But he had done keto. And I think until you hit on carnivore, trust that my cousin is on the right path for him. And even though, he knew that he had success doing one way, maybe some new stresses came up in his life, and that's what kicked him off of it. And hopefully he'll make his way back. I don't know. I just have hope for humanity and society that we're moving in that direction. Yeah. I guess we'll see though. I have hope. I feel like, it's a matter of time for people to just gain more knowledge. I feel like that's what they need.
Yeah, well said. I think it's it's a matter of time before people just learn about this knowledge, especially on the health side. Yeah. Jodie, if people want to reach out or connect with you, where's the best place to reach you?
Probably my email, which is likes2laugh@gmail.com.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure to post your email in the description so people can reach out to you. Jodie, thank you so much again for joining me. I enjoyed hearing your story and learning about your carnivore journey. I appreciate you taking the time to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you and just discussing carnivore. So thank you.